السلام عليكم. أنا كاتي رامزي وأنا مبسوطة جدا بسبب أنا في المملكة لثلاثة أيام الآن. شكرا. شكرا. I said I'm very happy to be here, the reason being that I've been in Saudi for 3 days and I'm very sad to go home tonight. So Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, welcome to this Executive Summit panel on FinTech's cross-industry evolution. Thank you to Laura for introducing. I'll quickly recap. We have Talal al-Bakr, CEO of SCCC, Joe Liu, co-founder and CEO of Heymax.ai, and Rodney Coutino, partner of consulting at Deloitte. So this panel will explore how financial technology is reshaping various sectors beyond traditional banking and finance, highlighting innovative applications and case studies, demonstrating FinTech's transformative impact on industries such as insurance, healthcare, retail, and real estate. And we've got an incredible amount of experience amongst the panelists for us to draw on in this session. So would you like to introduce a little bit more about yourselves, starting with you, Talal?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm the CEO of SCCC, which is a hyperscaler with Alibaba Cloud. We launched around 2 years ago, and we've been focusing specifically on the financial sector, and it's one of the most important sectors for us, and we had amazing success within that sector. We're enabling them for cloud services. At the same time, and maybe wearing a different hat, I co-founded 2 fintechs. One of them is Data Insights, and the other is the Lending Hub. One of them is in peer-to-peer lending, the other is in open banking. And for me, fintech and the financial institute sector is very near and dear to my heart, and it's something I like.
Fantastic, thank you. And then over to Joe.
Hey, I spent 20 years growing up in China, then next 10 years I spent in the US, mostly as a software engineer at Facebook, scaling Facebook to over 2 billion monthly active users.
Wow.
That's right before I started my own company, Heymax.ai, as a co-founder just last year. And we are a new generation of advertising platform that drive high conversions of advertising by giving customers a free vacation every year. So very excited to be here.
Thank you, and then over to Rodney.
Thank you, Katie. Firstly, thank you for having me here. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Rodney Coutino, partner Deloitte Consulting. Have been doing what I am doing for over 20 years now, and have had the privilege to work in a number of economies, namely UK, Europe, some part of Asia, and now in the Middle East, and of course in the Kingdom now. As you would imagine, I work very closely, collaborate with retail banks, corporate banking, exchanges, and other financial institutions alike. So glad to be here, glad to be part of the conversation and part of this grand event.
Thank you. So we've got a huge amount of experience and both depth in the fintech sector, but also globally from UK, Europe, Asia, the US, and the region as well. If we kick off with the first question, so Saudi Vision 2030 has the goal of creating economic diversification across sectors from construction, entertainment, retail, tourism, and financial services, of course. And fintech is such an enabler to all of those sectors. So if we start with your thoughts on that and what the role of fintech will play, and I'll start with you, Joe, because you've been at Meta and now as a founder in the travel space, but embedding fintech.
Yeah, haven't seen it both in Asia, so China. I'm based in Singapore right now, also in US and Europe in general. I think the interesting trend that we see is fintech is everywhere, and everything is becoming fintech. The boundary is really blurry. And I know that we've heard this a lot, but let me give you like a real example that really exemplify this point. So Chase Bank in the US, we all know Chase JP Morgan is a really large financial institution. But what a lot of people don't know is they're the 8th largest travel reseller in the whole entire world.
Wow.
right? So they become a travel agency, but also when you look at all the travel agencies, online travel agencies, or even hotels, airline, they all have their own credit card. Some of them have their own debit card, checking account linked to their name, starting from co-branding, now moving more towards they're owning the whole financial surroundings of an individual. So where can we see is that fintech is becoming everywhere, and then everything else becoming part of fintech ecosystem. So the boundary really blurry.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Rodney, you must have absolutely seen that in the consulting sector.
Absolutely, yes. So just to extend what Joe mentioned, the lines are getting blurry, yes. And if you think about Saudi 2030 vision as a whole, what it has done is truly transform the way people globally are looking at the kingdom. So if you take a step back, think about what was Saudi, the kingdom, known for 10 years back. People typically used to talk about oil economy, right? One of the oil fives. But to be honest, it's not the case anymore. Now people think about Saudi being at the center of the fastest growing G20 nation, where a lot of transformation is of course being driven by Saudi 2030 vision. And that is bringing about transformational deep changes, not just within financial services, which of course is close to my heart, but it is across sector, be it retail, be it insurance, be it capital markets, or be it real estate. It is truly bringing a lot of transformation.
Yeah, and Talal, I think you're at the forefront of that here with SCCC. I mean, I think, is it correct that you're driving 50% of the fintech market here in Riyadh with SCCC's capabilities?
Yeah, that's correct. Actually, we have acquired around 50% of fintechs within our cloud ecosystem, and we continue to evolve our offering to really be able to address the different needs that these fintechs are requiring. And what's very interesting and what we're seeing today in the market is a lot of non-fintech traditional companies are now requesting fintech solutions. So we've seen a huge demand with regards to e-wallets on non-fintech companies, with regards to super apps, where we have government agencies and government divisions requesting to really come up with these unique solutions that solve a problem, but also embed the full ecosystem of that experience, be it payment, be it structure, be it insurance, all of that within one ecosystem. And it's really showing us the diversity of what the vision is going to really bring to the country and how it's going to really tie everything together and really provide new and innovative solutions going forward.
Sure, and I think with your company Data Insights as well, that is working in open finance aggregation, and that around the world, open finance, open banking has been truly transformative, but it takes its time in different, sometimes slow paces in multiple countries around the world. But here, it seems to be such a eagerness to adopt, and no isn't an answer. Yeah,
that's exactly what's happening. Now, open banking, open finance was driven globally, and we're seeing huge adoption within Saudi. And a lot of adoption with regards to that is becoming very innovative in their approach. So a lot of things that in the Saudi Vision 2030 execution plan is adapt what others are doing, bring it, and then enhance it.
Wow,
so right now, we've been adapting open banking, open finance from outside. The UK has been a leader in that regard. But what we're seeing right now is after we started adapting it, now we're trying to go 2 steps forward. We're building the ecosystem to lead and start to push our advancements, our enhancements in open finance and open banking to the rest of the world as a proof of concept, as a finance methodology, and how as a, let's say, a test bed and a sandbox for the rest of the world, and how it can be applied in a successful manner.
Yeah, and I think the success of this event is absolutely testament to that desire to leapfrog and the buzz that it's created everywhere without, for example, our UK delegation of fintechs. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to go home. But on that, what initiatives do we think are needed to underpin being able to deliver on that? So, for example, when it comes to talent, Saudiization, what can we learned, and particularly Rodney, yourself in the consulting space, that needs to happen to be able to deliver these new solutions and ensure that they're sustainable and successful for the long term?
So if you think about few things, right? So one is the depth of innovation that we're seeing happening in the region. That's one. Second is the level of investment, Saudi 2030 vision, as you've mentioned, that it is bringing in. And customer centricity is a key aspect as well, where we see the next generation, Gen Z as we call it, in terms of expectation and customer behavior is fundamentally different to what we've experienced in the past 15, 20 years. And if you think about it, fintech is at the intersection of all of that, right? And one of the things that needs to be true for even deeper impact is, and you alluded to that, Katie. So one is having talent, homegrown talent, in the kingdom, extremely important. And Saudiization is, in my opinion, one of the great initiatives that's happening in the kingdom. But equally, there needs to be the right regulatory framework where innovators, leaders, fintechs, and innovators, they need to come together to build that right environment, and not just focus on business growth, but equally bear in mind the consumer interest. And that, I suppose, is going to be the sweet spot for increasingly driving fintechs in the economy and delivering value.
Sure, I think, yeah, that Gen Z dominance from the demographic point of view is, I think, shaping economies around the world, and particularly we'll see that in Saudi. Joe, in terms of what we need to underpin that, I'm sure you saw that at Meta, was it? You grew to 2 billion customers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably problems there that, I mean, no one could have foreseen probably the week before, let alone, with that trajectory of growth. So what from your experience, do we think are vital tools really, or implementations that can help drive the success?
Right. I think alluding to the Vision 2030 in Saudi, I think the momentum is incredible. But I think I do want to touch on the talent aspects of it too, right? Give a perspective that it takes time, right? It takes time to nurture the right talents, and then takes time to adapt what's the most advanced in the world, then to grow on the soil and be able to adapt and kind of evolve itself. So in terms of talent, getting the right talent to get to this 2030, Vision 2030 and beyond, can look into examples in the past. For example, Silicon Valley is not really built just in the last 30 years, right? It doesn't start with Google. It doesn't even start when Apple became a thing in 40 years ago. It really started out even prior to World War II, where a lot of companies set up because of the war needs, certain needs, right? It started to evolve a few generations after generation. So to me, this whole momentum of getting the outside talents, getting the best in the world to come into Saudiize and be able to grow and invest locally is crucial. But I also want to caution that it will take time. Right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes human generation, but also in terms of startup, fintech, it also takes fintech generation, startup generations. It's founders getting good access, having the right capital market, having the right paths to promote startup starting, and also provide the right path of globalization or exit locally, that capital market welcoming that, and so that you have startup founders, outside investors getting the return and reinvest in the next generation. The good thing is talent generations happens a lot faster than human generation, right? If we can fast track the normal 10-year also exit trajectory to a 5-year also exit trajectory, then you can increase the multiplication by a lot, right? That compound effect really is a lot. So for those people to use the latest technology, and we see AI wave, really exciting technologies coming into play, how do we make sure they're solving the right problems on the ground and not overfitting technologies into a non-existent problem? Is, you know, when Saudi is going through this fast trajectory of investment technology cycles, I think this is a crucial key, is sticking to the right problems to solve, using technology to enhance it, and not, you know, just throwing technology at a non-problem.
Sure, and I think failure doesn't seem to be a word here in the kingdom, but I think as well we see in any, say, startup and scaling community and sector that sometimes there needs to be the chance to fail and then repivot, and that just takes time. But I think we'll see it taking time, but Saudi speed time. I think you're already at 200 plus fintechs, and Saudi Vision 2030 is to have 525. So I think you're going to smash that target. But obviously, Talal, you being here on the ground in Riyadh as a local Saudi, you're probably best placed to speak and say what we need to see, and potentially having taken as well from things you've seen around the world, what do you think would really help fintech drive cross sectors to here?
Now, when we started, I remember when my first fintech, when we did it, it was around 4 years ago. And the ecosystem was not mature enough.
Right.
And this is something that we were seeing, not necessarily good movement, but an intention to move well. And we're seeing that being done on a daily basis and improving daily. So the regulatory aspects have improved beyond our expectations. And we're seeing a willingness to give and take.
Yeah.
Previously, regulatory was, this is what you need to do and this is how you do it. Right now, we're sitting with them, we're discussing ideas, and that has really changed our appetite for fintech and our adaptability for that. So I think that if I was to really define it as a core concept, it's the willingness for a regulator to be open and to communicate, and which we're seeing heavily. 2 days ago, SAMA announced the launch of payment initiation. And they announced it in a way that was extremely mature and structured. And it paved the way that, okay, we're seeing the transformation really pick up, and we're seeing a willingness to give and take and to listen to the other side and to really evolve the ecosystem, not just enforce. And that, for me, I think is the most important aspect that we're seeing a huge change on, and we're really feeling the impact. And I think going forward, just having the regulator nurture the ecosystem in such a manner will make sure that the fintechs and the ecosystem evolves and really comes up with more innovative solutions.
Sure, I mean, that's agreed with regulation. I think most countries strive to get the balance between innovation and consumer protection. Do you have any learnings, Joe and Rodney, from your experience in the US, in Asia, in the UK, in terms of how we can apply learnings from, say, regulatory difficulties that perhaps want to be avoided here, or things that have worked really well that could be applicable here?
Sure. So, few learnings, I suppose, based on what I've seen back in the UK and the whole of Europe. As we all know, fintech is a global phenomenon, right? And it's a big success story in some of the other developed nations like the UK and the US and other countries. One key learning is, and to Talal's point, there needs to be an intersection between innovation and regulation, and they need to work hand in glove. That is a big takeaway. And there isn't a day where you don't talk about or don't read about AI and Gen AI nowadays. And I think that is going to be pivotal in terms of how we innovate, how we strategize, how we scale AI and Gen AI through the lens of fintechs, and truly integrate that with not just financial services, but as I mentioned earlier, cross-sector, right? How do we bring in fintechs for insurers? in terms of how do we make sure that the products and services are more relevant to the customers from an insurance standpoint. How do we bring in fintechs for real estate investment, which is more around P2P lending and crowdfunding, and I think those platforms are going to be extremely important. Third is, how do we bring in fintechs for retail? As an example, buy now, pay later, and some of the other microfinancing platforms are going to be hugely important in terms of driving growth in that sector as well. And last but not the least, capital markets. It's undergoing huge transformation in the region, right? And it's not just for the corporates, for the large corporates in the kingdom, but equally for retail investors as well. And there's an increasing demand for investment to be more business-minded and to drive the whole economy towards greater efficiency and greater value. And all that really put together is what is going to make fintech play a key role in driving Saudi economy as a whole.
Yeah. Thank you. That was really comprehensive. And Joe, from your experience as well.
Yeah, I think for regulatory environment learnings, to really fast track that, I see this energy here that we want to fast track that. I think looking into other countries' trial and errors, so that the expensive trial and error doesn't have to happen here, but can be learned and avoided, and just take the good part out of it. Looking at Singapore, US, a lot of trial error has been done, like even in China too, right? So P2P lending, Rani, for example, I think China went through about 6-7 years ago, went through a whole troublesome period of explosion of ideas, new startups doing P2P lending, and then all folded at the end, right? So these can be avoided, but taking a really good part out of it, and to fast track the learning that way. I'm really hoping that the cross-country connections like this will thrive, and then we keep on learning as a whole humanity together, to not needing to repeat the same mistakes. So I see that this is already happening, and I really love to see more of that happening in the coming years.
Yeah, and I think just the willingness from everyone on panels, and the quality of the thought leadership here, and in the arena as well, the centre, just so much collaboration, I think is just going to drive that knowledge sharing globally forward here for fintech. Incredibly, I think we could talk for much longer, but we're nearing the end. So if we'd like to wrap up each with a final thought, Talal, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Very simply, I think we're very excited about the changes in fintech, the cross-evolution between the different industries. What we're seeing, the momentum is making us extremely excited. SCCC is extremely vested in nurturing this ecosystem, and we will continue to push that forward. And I think the sky's the limit.
Shukran, definitely. Joe.
Yeah, so fintech is in everything and everywhere to enable Saudi to achieve the Vision 2030 dreams. And I think we're all here to be in a really good spot to enable all these sectors around us, tourism, financial, or else, to be able to achieve that dream. Having that common connections, learning fast as a global group of fintech leaders, I think very important for us to going forward. So I welcome all the connections. Please find me on LinkedIn, or just email me.
Thank you.
These are truly incredible times in the kingdom, to be honest. And from a fintech standpoint, I think it's just the starting. And there's a lot to be achieved. And really, the role that fintechs will play will become even stronger as the kingdom goes deeper in its 2030 pursuit. And I'd like to end by saying fintechs are really going to be a key player in building a modern, a diversified, and a digital Saudi economy.
Sure, thank you. And I think also to sum up, Joe, your LinkedIn post yesterday when you'd landed and you said like 10 learnings already from my time in Riyadh, and it was to your audience, you will visit Saudi Arabia in the next 10 years. And I think that's That's absolutely the message and the feeling that's going to come out and travel from having been here at 24 FinTech. So on behalf of the panel and myself, thank you very much for listening. It's been an honor to be here. Shukran.
Thank you.
Thank you.